people can, stand up and say, we don't agree here, we agree there. But just started here now. The very people who are in the initial meeting are those who would go to the government and tell all the lies against the group. And they can brand the group, they can brand it with any name and destroy. See, that is the Cameroonian. I don't know. I wrote a post some time ago wondering whether Jesus was crucified in Cameroon. The country is simply horrible. I've never seen a country where the more people get educated, the more, I don't know, they behave like imbeciles. The more educated they are, the more they behave like imbeciles. People who don't think well, the intelligence is not, the intellect is not properly developed. That is Cameroon.
There's another side of this whole thing, which many really don't like talking about it, and even the authorities see it as a taboo. But I think that it is critical, it is important to talk about it before it even gets to that point, or before it ever happens, if it will ever happen in Cameroon. I'm talking about what happened recently in Gabon, for example, where there was a change and things really happened, we can say, in a peaceful way, even though there was some kind of psychological violence, so to speak, with regards to President Bongo and his followers and so on. What do you think about that?
When I was studying equity, a branch of law called equity, I came upon what they called in equity even now, laches. Laches is what is often said in ordinary parlance, that you sleep on your rights. See, Cameroonians have slept on their rights for too long to be able to get out of slumber one day and do the right thing. I would be the last man to want, an unconstitutional change. We can have a constitutional change if people understand and act as citizens, as people who love their country, without bringing in, the military. I read somewhere that the best military government is worse than the worst civilian government. Well, I don't know how true that is, but so it is. If we they started the Anglophone war here like a joke. See where we are today. Those of us who cried out for dialogue were instead picked up, and we languished in, in captivity. I don't call it detention. We languished in captivity for months, only to be told to go home because there was nothing incriminating against me.
That is exactly what we'll be looking at in some few minutes, how to heal the nationhood fragmented or threatened by the more than 7-year-long armed conflict in the northwest and southwest regions of the country. Stay with us. We're bringing to you right now some interviews of the week.
This health center harbors 13 villages. If you work for personal interest, who will be the beneficiary? I have people like Menge, Mesaka, Nyale, Mauzum that you use water crossing. She's never there. There is no drug there. Polio is the only thing that's beneficial here. Out of polio, there is nothing that can be given. Now, if you go to the health center, presently she's sick and she doesn't have an aid. There's no other assistant nurse that's helping her do one or two things.
Sincerely, we are really far from our administrative headquarters. Because somebody living in Yandong, you pass through 2 subdivisions before you go to your administrative headquarters. For example, you pass through Konye, then you go to Kumbatri before going to Tombe. So, in fact, we are requesting for administrative headquarters so the administration should be nearer us. That one will solve us a very, very big problem.
Many Cameroonians living abroad are facing a lot of difficulties to register for the upcoming presidential election. And if you do not register, you cannot vote.
The delay is seen as a strategy to deprive them of their voting right.
On the 13th of July 2011, President Paul Biya promulgated a law granting voting right to all Cameroonians living abroad to participate for presidential election and referendum, that is general election. But since then, that right remains on pieces of paper. There are two kinds of Cameroon. One beautiful and democratic Cameroon on a pieces of papers, and one terrible Cameroon in reality. Sustainable peace in Cameroon can only come through free, fair, and transparent election.
We call this political repression. That is the way I'm going to call it. It's a political repression. So to me, I think that this is like using an iron fist on democracy, which is a shame. The first effect of a political repression is that it raises anger in people. Let me tell you, I want to give an example of what I mean here. If you look at what happened in 2016, the Anglophone section, with the lawyers and the teachers, that was what we call political repression. And what happened? Angers of people fled. And up to today, we are still suffering from the effects of that political repression. We thought that the government by now will have learned a lesson. But then, they are repeating the same mistake of 2016.
You will come back. Those were interviews of the week. One of the major cracks on nationhood in Cameroon today is the more than 7-year-long socio-political and security tensions in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, of course emanating from the decade-old Anglophone problem. And today we're asking the question, how to heal the sick nationhood. Barrister ABINE, how can the sick nationhood of Cameroon today be healed? How can the bonds be brought together, be strengthened?
First, by telling the truth, by facing facts. I recently read somewhere people talked about exchange of notes between the British High Commissioner, they call him Ambassador, and AYAH. And tell the truth. Let us face facts. The famous United Nations Resolution 15, 1606, parenthesis 15, of 21st April 1961, called on 3 governments, the UK, the Republic of Cameroon, and Southern Cameroons. Southern Cameroons had a government at that time, to come together and finalize the joining. That's the word they used, I think in capital letters, to finalize. Even quacks at law know that there is no international come together that is oral, that ends up in oral resolution, in oral whatever. Everything is documentary. The day Cameroonese and Cameroonians admit that the joining was inconclusive is the beginning of the resolution of the problem we have today. I hear you journalists call it crisis. How can you be fighting a war on the ground, from the air, with armored cars, and you call it crisis? It's a war. The day we admit that the decolonization of southern Cameroon ended inconclusively will be the beginning of the resolution of the present situation. Every day somebody says, we're returning to normal, situation returning to normalcy, and the next day, people are killed. Let us begin there and forge ahead. When I was in politics, I said, faced with the present situation, let us come together, come up with a constitution that will be adopted by the two sides, and we rule the country in a 10-state federation. That document between the two parties, even in the absence of the United Kingdom, would be a document that will evidence the joining. As of now, let the President of the Republic or whosoever else refer us to any document saying that there was joining. The UN resolution never mentioned the British High Commissioner, call him ambassador. It named 3 entities: the Republic of Cameroon, the United Kingdom, and the government of Southern Cameroons. Even in the absence of Britain, we can, as black people, Bantus, agree to be together on terms, state down the terms. If we don't agree, there's nothing wrong in being side by side as two contiguous countries.
Southern Cameroonians were asked if they want to become independent by joining La République du Cameroun at the time or by joining the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the plebiscite.
You see, that's the international fraud in the whole thing. How can you become independent by joining? That's you become independent by leaning on somebody else. That's where the whole thing, where the whole fraud began. But to answer your question, the plebiscite was a declaration of intent. We want to join, to achieve independence by joining. Declaration of intent. And the United Nations itself came out with a resolution, 1608, bracket 15, of April 21, 1961, saying that these 3 entities I've named a number of times here, the United Kingdom, the Republic of Cameroon, and the government of Southern Cameroons should come together and finalize. I've told you that word to the best of my memory. It's written in capital letters, to finalize. So long as that was not done, there's nothing final. There was nothing final about the joining or independence or whatever. I'm not saying it, I'm saying that's what the United Nations said should be done. And if anybody under the sun can show us today that is the document that the 3 entities met and agreed, these are the terms, if they bring us that document, all the killing today, everybody will tell those who are fighting that, look at, this is what was done by your forefathers, by your parents. What are you fighting for? Everybody will tell them, no, you are wrong. But glossing over everything, glossing over doesn't help anybody. When you tell them the truth, as I'm telling you here now, they send people after you to kill you. If they kill everybody, there will be, leaders of corpses, leaders of the dead. We'll tell them what can, bring us a lasting solution. And not by going to dish out money to people in Canada. Since they went to Canada, where are those Anglophone leaders? Do we hear them again? But when the money gets finished, they will go back to their original, stance. It won't help us. It's not helping us. Let us sit down and talk. Talk to the real people. You don't make a grand dialogue and you call a certain Bakossi boy to go there and pose as if he was Jesus, dishing out instructions to his disciples. You call the real people, you talk together, you agree.
Not just to be sure that we're getting you clearly. When you talk about the real people, who are you referring to?
It's not for me to tell you who the real people are. The arrested people, they are in detention. Today they know that there are some leaders abroad. In the country here, the Anglophones have kept saying, even before Cardinal Tumi died, I kept saying like him, that nothing works until the Anglophones have met and elected their representatives and documented what they wanted. The Anglophones need to meet and tell you who the real people are. What I will be telling you the real people as who, in what capacity. The Anglophones should be allowed to meet. They will tell you who their leaders are. You sit down with them and dialogue. I believe that if things are clearly stated down as to our living together, peaceful coexistence, it may work. I'm not saying it will, it may. But the brute force will help nobody. The brute force is only costing us more lives. Both sides. Not only the fighters are killed, the military are equally killed. It's retarding the economy, the growth of our economy. It's retarding the country. We'll fight until what happens. And supposing we fight and people say, okay, we'll stop here. So that prevent, forestall a future fight. You have killed people. You've killed their parents. Those children are growing up with, animosity. No. The desire to revenge is entrenched in the human being, even in God. God sent away Lucifer because, he wanted to revenge himself. How can I put you here and you want to fight me? So that is in us. It's divine. So we handle the situation now, or we are preparing a situation worse than the present situation. I'm not a prophet, but often I have said, and it has come to pass. I wrote to the UN, today we are seeing it. I said dialogue. Today we see where the arms have taken us to. And the arms are taking us to.
During the 8th of March activities here in Boya and even in Kumba, we had some authorities, including the First Deputy Senior Division Office of the Meme Division, and even the First Deputy Mayor of Boya, I think so, calling on cessationist fighters, drop your guns, come out of the bushes, and we have been hearing this and on and on. And that seems not to be happening. Many are still taking up guns, many are still in the bushes. What can be done to bring down the guns and allow people to go about their activities while long-term solutions are being provided to the problem?
I have put down the guns and all that, go to DDA centers, it's a sing-song. In fact, those who are still singing it are people of very bad faith. We've heard it over and over, and nothing good has come out of it. I heard some Francophones say that it's only when people are convicted that the president can lawfully release them by way of pardon, by way of rehabilitation, whatever. When you ask them the question, the president has released a number of Anglophone detainees. In my case, there was Mr. Agbobala, there was Dr. Niba, there was myself, and a host of others. The president should use that same law and release all these Anglophones who are waiting trial and languishing in jail under terrible conditions, appalling conditions over the years. You should release them. Then all those who have been convicted should be released. Then they create enabling instrument. Once that is done, things will start piping down. Then they will now create enabling environment where the Anglophones would meet, elect their representatives, you can call them leaders, who will meet with their government, and they decide the southern Cameroon's unresolved joining. I said it without bias, without intending to hurt anybody, but as a fact that so long as the UN call for the three entities to meet and finalize, so long as we have no evidence of how they finalized, what was the joining, the so-called federal constitution has nothing to do with finalizing by three entities. That can never ever be invoked. Those who invoke are just people who don't have small elementary knowledge of the law. That cannot be invoked. So long as there is absence of that document, the government of the Republic of Cameroon and Anglophone leaders will sit down peacefully and agree or disagree. There's no law that they must agree. I'm not saying I'm not the one to, even if they put me there, I mean, the cripple that I am, I may not even be able to attend. But even if I were there, I would just be a lone voice, a single voice. The people would agree or disagree. It would be their right to agree or disagree. Why not? You would invoke the plebiscite. I would say the plebiscite was just a declaration of intent. You can call me from sleep any day, any time, and I'll repeat the same thing because that is factual. Nobody can change the truth. The lie can be disproved. Nobody can ever disprove the truth.
Right, Justice Paul ABINE, before we go, I want you to turn to this camera and send a message to Anglophones, Cameroonians from the northwest and southwest regions of the country, with regards to the imperative importance of coming together, and not just coming together in a physical place, not just coming together physically, but coming together in oneness of mind, looking towards the same direction, and agreeing on what they want. Because there is an issue about some demanding one thing, others demanding another, some asking for federation, others asking for independence, others asking for decentralization, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Well, fellow countrymen, when Jonathan talks of this group wanting, that group wanting, who mandated those groups? The power lies with the people of southern Cameroons, with southern Cameroonians. I know some people would want to call them Ambazonians. Some people would hate to hear that word Ambazonians. These people must come together.
I'll prefer you talk about former southern Cameroons, because as of now we don't have southern Cameroons anymore. We have northwest and southwest.
No, well, you are saying that is your own stance. I'm talking as a lawyer. I've said here over and over that nothing was finalized. And whatever was created from fiction doesn't stand. So I talk of southern Cameroonians, not former southern Cameroonians. We were together. They can say the white man forced us together. So too were other countries in Africa. So too were other communities, other black communities in Africa. We have a common destiny. We have a common destiny. If only by our intermarriages, by our system of education, by our having a powerful lingua franca called Pidgin English. We do more harm to posterity if we shake our responsibility to come together and find a lasting solution, a peaceful solution. Look at so many young people dying in the bushes, so many bitten by mosquitoes, those by snakes, tree branches falling overnight and killing people. Let us speak with one voice. As of now, nobody can represent us. We have not mandated any group of people to represent us. But for unity of purpose will help us out in a peaceful way for the sake of the people of today and for posterity.
Thank you very much, Barrister AYAH ABINE, former judge of the Supreme Court of Cameroon, former member of Cameroon's lower house of parliament, founder and former president of the Popular Action Party. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, I cannot be thankful enough for you coming to me. After several years, maybe my voice will be heard, and the government should know a judicial killing as they are doing right now. Whoever has any link with the President of the Republic should tell him that that's what I have said.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today's edition of The Insight. You can follow the program on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, and you can also follow the rebroadcast of the program on Friday at 5 p.m. Thank you for staying with us. Goodbye.